The bass thrummed through the polished mahogany floor of velvet and vice, vibrating up through my heels and into my chest like a second heartbeat. I pressed my palms against the cool marble of the bar top, grounding myself as another wave of Friday night chaos crashed over me. The scent of aged whiskey and expensive cologne hung thick in the air, mixing with the sharp tang of fresh lime I'd just zested for someone's overpriced mojito. "Luna, Table 7 needs another round of Macallan 25, Marcus called from the other end of the bar, his voice barely cutting through the din of Manhattan's elite, trying to forget their day jobs. "And the guy at the corner booth wants to know if you're still ignoring him." I didn't need to look to know which corner booth Marcus meant. For the past 3 weeks, the same man had occupied that space every Friday night, always alone, always watching, always ordering the same drink. Bourbon, neat, with one large ice cube, never a second glass. The drink would sit in front of him for exactly 2 hours, while those dark, intense eyes tracked my every movement across the bar. Dominic something. I'd heard his name whispered by other patrons, always with a particular tone that lived somewhere between reverence and fear. The kind of name that made people look over their shoulders before speaking it aloud. "Tell him I'm working," I replied, reaching for the Macallan without breaking stride. My hands moved with practiced efficiency, pouring 3 fingers into each crystal tumbler. 6 years of bartending in New York's most exclusive establishments had given me the kind of muscle memory that didn't require thought. Marcus snorted. "You've been working every Friday for a month. Pretty sure the man can tell." Then he's smarter than he looks. That was a lie. Dominic was exactly as smart as he looked, which was to say terrifyingly intelligent. I'd watched him handle business associates with surgical precision, never raising his voice, never losing that iron control, but somehow always getting exactly what he wanted. Men twice his age deferred to him. Women who could buy small countries with their trust funds tried and failed to catch his attention. And for reasons I couldn't explain, and definitely didn't want to examine, he'd decided to catch mine instead. My grandmother's silver bracelet caught the light as I delivered the drinks, the only piece of jewelry I wore while working. She'd given it to me before she died, pressing it into my palm with trembling fingers. "Para mi nieta valiente," she'd whispered, "for my brave granddaughter." The metal was warm against my skin now, a reminder that I'd survived worse things than an attractive man with a dangerous reputation. "You know who he is, right?" Jennifer, one of the cocktail servers, sidled up to the bar with her empty tray. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Dominic Caruso, as in the Caruso family." "I don't follow," I said, though I absolutely did follow. Everyone in New York with half a brain knew the Caruso name. Old money wrapped around newer, bloodier enterprises, the kind of family that owned half the city's politicians and the other half's consciences. "Luna." Jennifer's manicured nails tapped against the bar. "Don't play dumb. That man is dangerous, like people disappear if they cross him dangerous." "Then I guess it's a good thing I'm not crossing him." I turned away to mix a Moscow Mule, measuring vodka with more force than necessary. "I'm just not interested." Another lie. I was interested. That was the problem. 3 weeks of those dark eyes following me, of that massive frame occupying my peripheral vision, of wondering what his voice sounded like up close instead of filtered through the ambient noise of the bar. 3 weeks of telling myself that attraction to a man like Dominic Caruso was the fast track to a very short, very complicated life. But there was something about the way he looked at me, not like I was something to be conquered or collected, but like I was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. Like my refusal to acknowledge his presence was the most interesting thing that had happened to him in months. The bar started to thin out around midnight, the banker bros and trust fund babies stumbling out to waiting cars and bad decisions. I wiped down surfaces that didn't need wiping, reorganized bottles that were already organized, and very carefully didn't look at the corner booth where Dominic still sat, his bourbon barely touched, his attention still fixed on me. "You're being an idiot," I muttered to myself, squaring my shoulders. "Just ignore him. He'll get bored eventually." But when I finally risked a glance in his direction, I found him leaning back in the booth with an expression that suggested boredom was the last thing on his mind. His suit jacket was unbuttoned, revealing a crisp white shirt that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. Dark hair swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved from marble by an artist with a preference for sharp angles and harder edges, and then he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that said he'd seen me looking, that he knew exactly what effect he had, that he could wait as long as it took for me to give in. Something in me snapped. Maybe it was the tequila shot I'd done after the investment banker spilled his drink on my shoes. Maybe it was the frustration of 3 weeks of feeling hunted in my own workplace. Maybe it was just exhaustion with always being careful, always being smart, always doing exactly what I was supposed to do. I grabbed a glass tumbler and the bottle of top-shelf bourbon we kept for VIPs, poured 2 fingers worth and downed it in one smooth motion, feeling the burn trace a path of liquid courage down my throat. Marcus's eyes went wide. "Luna, what are you—" But I was already moving, weaving through the scattered tables toward that corner booth with a determination that was definitely going to get me in trouble. My heart hammered against my ribs, adrenaline and alcohol mixing into something reckless and electric. Dominic watched me approach with the stillness of a predator tracking prey. Not moving, barely breathing, just those dark eyes locked on mine with an intensity that should have made me turn around. I didn't turn around. I reached his booth, planted my hands on the table, and leaned in close enough to smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that probably cost more than my rent. Close enough to see the faint scar along his jawline, barely visible in the low light. Close enough to make my point. "You want to know why I've been ignoring you?" My voice came out lower than intended, rougher. "Because men like you are trouble. The kind of trouble that doesn't wash off." His lips curved, that dangerous smile spreading slowly across his face. "And yet here you are. Here I am." I straightened, suddenly aware of how badly I'd miscalculated. This close, I could feel the power radiating off him like heat. Could see the intelligence in those dark eyes, the calculation happening behind that perfect face. He stood, unfolding from the booth with fluid grace that belonged in a different century. Suddenly I was looking up instead of down, suddenly aware of exactly how much larger he was, how much space he occupied not just physically, but in the entire atmosphere of the room. "Luna Parker," he said, and my name in his mouth sounded like a claim. "I've been patient. I didn't ask you to be. No." He took a step closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his body. "You didn't ask for anything. That's what makes you interesting." My pulse thundered in my ears. This was the moment to walk away, to laugh it off, to retreat behind the bar and pretend this conversation never happened. This was the moment to be smart. Instead, I grabbed his tie, pulled him down, and kissed him. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then his hands were in my hair, his mouth moving against mine with a hunger that matched my own, his body pressing me back against the booth. The kiss was fierce and claiming and absolutely nothing like I'd expected, until someone grabbed my arm and yanked me backward with brutal force. I stumbled, breaking away from the man I'd been kissing, and found myself staring into a different face. Same dark eyes, same sharp features, same powerful build, but the expression was cold fury instead of heated desire. "What?" the man holding my arm said, his voice deadly quiet. "Do you think you're doing with my brother?" My blood turned to ice as I looked between them. 2 identical faces, 2 identical bodies. 2 men who could have been mirror images except for the rage radiating from one and the dazed satisfaction on the other. Oh God. Dominic? I whispered, looking at the furious one. Got it in one, sweetheart. His grip on my arm tightened just enough to make his point. Though apparently you needed to kiss my twin to figure that out. The man I'd actually kissed, Liam, I assumed, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, grinning like he just won something. Can't say I'm complaining about the confusion, Luna. Dominic's eyes never left mine, dark and dangerous and absolutely livid. Outside. Now. It wasn't a request. The alley behind Velvet and Vice smelled like rain and rotting garbage, a stark contrast to the perfumed opulence inside. Dominic had released my arm the moment we stepped through the service door, but his presence still felt like a cage around me. He stood between me and the only exit, hands in his pockets, the picture of casual control except for the muscle ticking in his jaw. You want to explain? He said, voice dangerously soft. Why I just watched you kiss my brother. I crossed my arms, refusing to let him see how badly my hands were shaking. The tequila courage was wearing off, leaving behind the cold reality of exactly how stupid I'd just been. I didn't know you had a twin. That's your excuse? You didn't know? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You've been watching me for 3 weeks, Luna. Studying me. I've seen you look. Every Friday night when you think I'm not paying attention, you watch me like you're trying to solve an equation. Heat flooded my cheeks. You're imagining things. Am I? He moved closer, and I fought the urge to back up against the brick wall. Tell me, what did you think would happen when you walked over to my table? When you grabbed my tie and kissed me? I kissed him, not you. The distinction felt important, even if it was a technicality. You kissed who you thought was me. Another step closer, which means you wanted to kiss me, Luna. So let's drop the pretense that you're not interested. My chin lifted. Maybe I was interested. Past tense. Before I found out you're the kind of man who lurks in bars for weeks, instead of just introducing himself like a normal person. I'm not a normal person. His voice dropped lower, intimate and threatening all at once. And you knew that before tonight. You knew exactly what I am, and you kissed me anyway. He was right, and I hated that he was right. Your brother didn't seem to mind the confusion. Something dangerous flashed in Dominic's eyes. Liam finds chaos entertaining, I don't. And now, I have a problem. What problem? I made a mistake. It won't happen again. I tried to step around him, but he moved with me, blocking my path without ever touching me. The problem is that half the bar just watched Luna Parker, the woman who's been turning down every man in Manhattan for 6 months, grab someone she thought was me and kiss him like the world was ending. By tomorrow morning, everyone who matters will know about it. So what? I kiss someone at work. I'll get written up. Life goes on. You really don't understand, do you? He studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. In my world, that kiss was a declaration. You made a choice tonight, whether you meant to or not, and now people will think you're mine. I'm not anyone's. Tell that to the Rossi family. He pulled out his phone, swiped through something, then turned the screen toward me. This was posted 15 minutes ago. It was a photo from inside the bar, slightly blurry but clear enough. Me, pulling someone down by his tie. The kiss captured in perfect, damning detail. The caption read, "Looks like Dominic Caruso finally caught the pretty bartender's attention. Velvet and Vice. Power couple." My stomach dropped. Delete it. I can't. It's not my account. He pocketed the phone. It's already been shared 43 times. By morning, it'll be everywhere. This is insane. It's just a kiss. In your world, maybe. In mine, it's leverage, currency, a weakness that my enemies will absolutely exploit. He ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of genuine frustration. Do you have any idea how many people would love to use you to get to me now? Then tell them it was a mistake. Tell them I kissed your brother. And make both of us look like fools? Make Liam a target for every rival family that wants to send me a message? He shook his head. No. There's only one way to fix this. The way he said it made ice form in my veins. What way? You stay close to me. We make it real enough that no one questions it. Real enough that attacking you would be the same as attacking me directly, which no one in this city is stupid enough to do. I stared at him. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend because I kissed the wrong twin? I want you to be under my protection before someone decides you're a good way to hurt me. His voice softened, just slightly. I know this isn't what you wanted. But that kiss changed things, Luna, whether we like it or not. Before I could respond, the service door burst open. Liam stepped out, still grinning like he'd just won the lottery. So, are you two done yelling at each other? Because the tension is killing me. Liam. Dominic's voice could have frozen fire. Leave. Come on, Dom. Don't be mad just because she thought I was you. Liam's eyes found mine, sparking with mischief. Though I have to say, Luna, that was one hell of a kiss. If you ever want to do it again... Dominic moved so fast I barely saw it. 1 second Liam was talking. The next he was pressed against the wall with Dominic's forearm across his throat. Touch her again, Dominic said quietly, and brother or not, we'll have a problem. Jesus, Dom. Liam held up his hands in surrender, though he was still smiling. I'm kidding, mostly, but you can't blame a guy for trying. Dominic released him, stepping back with visible effort to regain control. Go home, Liam. Now. Fine. Liam adjusted his collar, shooting me one last grin. See you around, Luna. Try not to kiss any more Carusos without checking for identification first. He disappeared back into the bar, leaving Dominic and me alone again in the alley. The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything unsaid. He's not always like that, Dominic finally said. Could have fooled me. Liam lives for chaos. Always has. He turned to face me fully. But he's right about one thing. You need to be more careful about who you kiss. Noted. I hugged myself against the cold. So what happens now? You expect me to just go along with this insane plan? I expect you to be smart enough to see you don't have another choice. He pulled off his suit jacket, and before I could protest, draped it over my shoulders. The warmth was immediate, the scent of his cologne enveloping me. I'll have a car pick you up from your apartment tomorrow. We'll talk more then. You don't know where I live. His smile was almost pitying. Luna, I've known where you live since the first night I walked into this bar. I know you rent a studio in Hell's Kitchen, that you take the subway to work, that you have exactly $347 in your checking account, and that you send money to your mother in Arizona every month, even though she hasn't spoken to you in 2 years. The blood drained from my face. You investigated me? I investigate everyone I'm interested in. It's how I stay alive. He checked his watch, a gesture so casual it made the revelation even more chilling. The car will be there at 9. Don't make me come get you. And if I do? If I just don't show up? He looked at me then, really looked at me, and something in his expression shifted. For just a moment, I saw past the control and the power to something almost like regret. Then you'll prove you're not as smart as I think you are. And that would disappoint me. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing in the alley wrapped in his jacket, my mind racing with the implications of everything that had just happened. One stupid, impulsive kiss, and my entire life had just been turned upside down. I stayed there for a long time after he left, trying to process it all. When I finally went back inside, Marcus was waiting by the service door. "You okay?" he asked, concern etching lines in his forehead. "Define okay." "Luna, that man is dangerous, I know." I shrugged off Dominic's jacket, the loss of warmth immediate. "Everyone keeps telling me what he is, but nobody's asked me what I want." "What do you want?" I thought about that. About 3 weeks of watching Dominic Caruso sit in his corner booth. About the electric charge I'd felt when I thought I was kissing him. About the way my pulse jumped when he looked at me, even when he was angry. I said slowly, to not be afraid anymore." Marcus frowned. "Afraid of what?" "Of making the wrong choice, of playing it safe, of spending my whole life wondering what if." I folded the jacket carefully, already planning to return it tomorrow, even though part of me wanted to keep it. "I kissed him tonight. Well, I kissed who I thought was him. Because I was tired of being careful. And look where that got you." "Yeah." I managed a smile that felt only slightly broken. "Look where that got me." The rest of my shift passed in a blur. Every time someone looked at me, I wondered if they'd seen the photo. Every whispered conversation might have been about me. By the time I clocked out at 2 a.m., paranoia had settled into my bones like a chill I couldn't shake. The subway ride home was quiet. Just me and a handful of other night shift workers too tired to do anything but stare at their phones. I kept Dominic's jacket clutched in my lap, a tangible reminder that tonight had actually happened, that I hadn't imagined the entire insane encounter. My studio apartment was exactly as I'd left it. Small, cramped, with a radiator that clanked but barely heated anything. I locked the door, engaged the chain, and finally let myself breathe. Then I saw the envelope on my floor, just inside the doorway where someone had slipped it under the door. My hands shook as I picked it up. Inside was a single card, expensive cream-colored stock with embossed lettering. "The car will arrive at 9 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. D." I turned the card over and found a phone number written in neat, masculine handwriting. Below it, a single line. "If you need anything before then, call. Someone is always watching." The words should have terrified me. Instead, I found myself tracing the phone number with my fingertip, wondering what would happen if I actually called it. I didn't call, but I also didn't sleep. I spent the night sitting by my window, watching the street below for any sign of the surveillance Dominic had implied. I didn't see anyone obvious, but that didn't mean they weren't there. At 8:45 the next morning, I was showered, dressed in my nicest jeans and a sweater that didn't have any holes, and standing by my window watching for the car. I told myself I was only going along with this to tell Dominic in person that he was insane, that I wanted no part of whatever game he was playing. I told myself a lot of lies that morning. At exactly 9 a.m., a black town car pulled up in front of my building. The driver got out, a large man with a professional demeanor and a slight bulge under his jacket that I tried not to think about, and looked up at my window as if he knew exactly which one was mine. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "The car is waiting, Luna. Last chance to be smart." I grabbed my jacket, not his, mine, and headed downstairs before I could change my mind. The driver opened the door without a word. I slid into the back seat, expecting to find it empty. Instead, Dominic was waiting, dressed in a different suit, but with the same intense focus. "Good morning," he said. "I'm glad you chose wisely." As the car pulled away from my building, from my life, from everything I knew, I couldn't shake the feeling that I hadn't chosen anything at all. I'd simply stopped running from the inevitable. The car didn't take me to a restaurant or an office or anywhere I might have expected. Instead, we drove for 20 minutes through increasingly expensive neighborhoods until we pulled up to a building that looked like it had been transplanted from old-world Italy. All stone facades and ornate ironwork, the kind of place that whispered old money and older secrets. "Where are we?" I asked as the driver opened my door. "Home," Dominic said simply, stepping out ahead of me. Your home? For now, yours too. He didn't wait for my response, just started walking toward the entrance where a doorman nodded respectfully and held the door. I followed because the alternative was standing on the sidewalk looking lost, but my heart hammered against my ribs. This was moving too fast, spiraling too far out of my control. Yesterday I'd been a bartender with a crush. Today I was apparently moving into a Mafia boss's building. The elevator was all polished brass and mirrors, and I carefully avoided looking at my reflection next to his. We rode in silence to the top floor. Of course it was the top floor, and emerged directly into his penthouse. The space was massive and decorated with the kind of restrained elegance that screamed wealth without being ostentatious. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park. The furniture was leather and dark wood. The art on the walls was probably worth more than I'd make in a lifetime, and somehow it all felt less like a home and more like a very expensive cage. Coffee? Dominic asked, shrugging out of his suit jacket and draping it over a chair. Without it, in just his white dress shirt and perfectly tailored pants, he looked less like a crime boss and more like a man. Almost human. Almost. I want answers, I said, staying near the elevator. You said we'd talk. So talk. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Fair enough. What do you want to know? Everything. Start with why you've been watching me for 3 weeks. I wasn't watching you. He moved to the kitchen, an open space with marble countertops and appliances that probably cost more than my yearly rent. I was observing you. That's the same thing. Not really. He pulled out a French press, began measuring coffee grounds with the precision of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. Watching implies passive interest. Observation is active, analytical. I was trying to understand you. Why? Because you were different. He poured hot water from a kettle I hadn't noticed was already heated. Every other woman in that bar either ignored me completely because they knew who I was, or they threw themselves at me for the same reason. You did neither. I ignored you. No. He pressed the coffee slowly, his focus entirely on the task. You were aware of me every second I was in that room, but you never approached, never tried to leverage that awareness into something. You just existed in the same space as me without demanding anything. That's rare. He poured 2 cups, added cream to one without asking if I took it, which I did, which meant he'd observed that too, and brought them over. I took the cup because refusing felt childish, and because the warmth was comforting even if the situation wasn't. So you decided to stalk me? I decided to learn about you. There's a difference. He sat on the leather sofa, and after a moment, I sat in the chair across from him, maintaining distance. I wanted to know if you were real, or if I was projecting something onto you that didn't exist. And what's the verdict? You're real. He sipped his coffee, eyes never leaving mine. Frustratingly, dangerously real. Something in his tone made my chest tighten. I'm not dangerous. You're more dangerous than you know. He set down his cup. Do you know what the worst thing is about my life, Luna? It's not the violence or the constant threat of death. It's the loneliness of never knowing if anyone sees you, or just what you can give them. The honesty in his voice caught me off guard. That's manipulative. It's true. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I'm not trying to manipulate you. I'm trying to explain why that kiss mattered, why I can't just laugh it off and let you walk away, because of your reputation. Because of you. The words hung between us. The photo, the reputation, that's all manageable. What's not manageable is that I've spent 3 weeks watching you, learning you, and last night someone else got to taste what I've been denying myself. Heat flooded my face. So this is about jealousy, About your twin getting something you wanted. This is about the fact that you wanted to kiss me and you did. You just kissed the wrong face. He stood, prowled closer, and I fought the urge to shrink back. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you felt nothing when you thought you were kissing me. I couldn't, because he wasn't wrong. What I felt doesn't matter, I said instead. You're talking about keeping me here, under your protection, like I'm some kind of possession. Not a possession, a partner. He crouched in front of my chair, bringing us to eye level. I know how this looks. I know I'm asking you to trust me when you have every reason not to. But I'm trying to keep you safe, Luna. That photo made you visible to people who will absolutely use you to hurt me if they can. Then why not just put out a statement? Say it was a mistake, that we're not together. Because they won't believe it. His voice was gentle now, patient. The kiss was too public, too passionate. Retracting now makes us both look weak, like we're running scared. And in my world, appearing weak is the same as being weak. So I'm trapped. You're protected. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. And when I didn't, his fingers brushed my cheek. The touch was achingly gentle. There's a difference. Everyone keeps saying that, I whispered. That there's a difference between all these things that feel the same. I know. His thumb traced along my jaw. I'm asking you to trust me anyway. Not because you have to, but because part of you wants to. The problem was, he was right. Part of me did want to trust him. The same part that had been watching him for 3 weeks. The same part that had gathered courage from a tequila shot and kissed him without thinking about consequences. I need to know something, I said. The truth. Are you as dangerous as everyone says? He didn't hesitate. Yes. Have you killed people? Yes. The casual admission should have sent me running. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked for the truth. He pulled back, giving me space. I won't lie to you, Luna. Not about who I am or what I do. If you stay, you need to understand what that means. I sipped my coffee, buying time to process. The logical part of my brain screamed at me to leave, to get as far from Dominic Caruso as possible. But the other part, the part that had been slowly suffocating under the weight of always being careful, always choosing safety over desire, that part was louder. Tell me about Liam, I said finally. Your twin. Are you close? Dominic's expression softened in a way I hadn't seen before. We're twins. We're connected in ways that are hard to explain. But we're also completely different people. He seemed fun. Liam is chaos wrapped in charm. He does what he wants, when he wants, and somehow always lands on his feet. There was affection in his voice, but also exasperation. I'm the one who has to clean up his messes. Is that why you were so angry? Because he kissed me? I was angry because he knew. Dominic stood, pacing to the windows. Liam knew I'd been coming to that bar every Friday. He knew I was interested in you. And he let you kiss him anyway, because he thought it was funny. That's a pretty elaborate prank. That's Liam. He turned back to face me. But he won't touch you again. Not after last night. The possessiveness in his tone should have bothered me. Instead, it sent heat curling through my stomach. What if I want him to? It was a test, a probe to see how he'd react. Dominic's eyes darkened. Then I'd tell you that you're lying. You didn't kiss Liam because you wanted him. You kissed him because you thought he was me. He crossed back to me, and this time when he crouched in front of my chair, he was close enough that I could feel his breath. So let's stop playing games, Luna. You want me? I want you. The rest is just logistics. Logistics like the fact that you're a criminal? Logistics like how we keep you safe while we figure out what this is between us. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining. Stay here. Let me protect you. And in the meantime, we'll see if this attraction is real or just adrenaline and poor judgment. I looked down at our joined hands. His was larger, rougher, marked with a thin scar across the knuckles. A hand that had hurt people. A hand that was currently holding mine with surprising gentleness. What if it's real? I asked quietly. What if this isn't just attraction? Then we'll deal with that too. He squeezed my hand. But first, you need to be safe. Everything else is secondary. How long? As long as it takes for the interest to die down, for people to stop seeing you as a way to hurt me. He paused. Could be weeks, could be months. I have a job, Dominic, an apartment, a life. You'll keep all of it. I'll have a car take you to and from work. Security will be discreet but constant. His voice was firm. But you sleep here, where I can ensure you're protected. In your bed? The question came out more breathless than I intended. His smile was slow and devastating. That's up to you. I have guest rooms, or you can share mine. Your choice. Some choice. More choice than you'd have if the Rossi family decided you were worth kidnapping to send me a message. The bluntness was jarring. This isn't a game, Luna. People in my world don't play fair, and they don't hesitate to hurt innocents if it gets them what they want. I stood, needing to move, to think. I walked to the windows and looked out at Central Park spread below like a green blanket over the city. From this height, everything looked small, manageable, safe. What if I say no? I asked without turning around. What if I just walk out of here and take my chances? Then I'll have someone follow you anyway. He came to stand beside me, close but not touching. I'll keep you safe whether you like it or not, Luna. The only difference is whether you're comfortable while I do it. That's not protection. That's control. It's both. He didn't apologize for it. I know you don't like it. I know you want to make your own choices, but right now the safest choice is to let me help you. I turned to face him. And what do you get out of this? Besides the satisfaction of keeping your reputation intact? I get to know you. His voice dropped lower. I get to have you close instead of watching you from across a bar. I get to see if what I've been feeling for 3 weeks is real or just obsession. What if it's obsession? Then you'll be well protected by someone who's obsessed with keeping you safe. His smile was wry. Could be worse. Could be better. Could be, he agreed. But it could also be a lot worse, and I'm trying to prevent worse from happening. I studied his face, searching for deception and finding only brutal honesty. Dominic Caruso might be a lot of things. Dangerous, controlling, possessive. But he didn't seem to be a liar. 1 month, I said finally. I'll stay for 1 month. Let the photo die down, let people lose interest. But I keep my job. I keep my apartment. And you don't tell me what to do. 3 months minimum. That's how long it takes for something like this to fade. And I will tell you what to do when it concerns your safety. 2 months. And you ask? Not tell. His smile was genuine this time. 2 months. I'll ask nicely. Deal. We shook on it, his hand engulfing mine. And as I stood there in his penthouse overlooking Central Park, making bargains with a Mafia boss about how long he could control my life, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just agreed to something far more binding than a simple arrangement. I'd agreed to let Dominic Caruso in, and something told me that once I let him in, getting him out again would be impossible. The guest room Dominic showed me to was larger than my entire apartment. King-sized bed with sheets that probably cost more than my monthly rent. An ensuite bathroom with a soaking tub and separate shower. A walk-in closet that was currently empty except for a few items hanging with tags still attached. I had some things brought over, Dominic said, gesturing to the closet. Basics until we can get you properly outfitted. I ran my fingers over a cashmere sweater, the fabric impossibly soft. You bought me clothes? I had my assistant buy you clothes. She has excellent taste. He leaned against the doorframe, watching me explore. There's also toiletries in the bathroom, and the kitchen is fully stocked. Help yourself to anything. What about rules? I turned to face him. If I'm staying here, there must be rules. Don't leave without telling me where you're going. Don't talk to anyone about our arrangement. Don't answer the door unless security clears it first. He ticked them off on his fingers. Beyond that, you're free to do as you please. That's it? What were you expecting? A list of demands. His mouth curved. I'm not your warden, Luna. I'm your protection. Right, protection. I sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline of the past 12 hours was finally crashing. Can I ask you something? Anything. Last night, before I kissed Liam, before I thought I kissed you, you smiled at me. What was that about? He was quiet for a moment, considering. I smiled because you finally looked at me. Really looked. Not just those careful glances you thought I didn't notice. You looked at me like you'd made a decision, and I was curious what that decision would be. And when you found out I'd kissed your brother instead, I wanted to put my fist through a wall. The admission was casual, but his jaw tightened with the memory. I wanted to drag you away from him and make it very clear whose mouth you should have been kissing. Heat flooded my face. That's very possessive. I'm a possessive man. He pushed off the doorframe. Get some rest, we'll talk more later. Dominic, I called as he reached the door. Thank you for this, even if I don't fully understand it yet. His smile was softer than I'd seen before. You will, Luna. I promise you will. After he left, I explored the bathroom and found everything I could possibly need. Expensive shampoo, conditioner, body wash, face cream, even a toothbrush still in its package. It was thoughtful in a way that felt almost intrusive, like he'd anticipated every need before I'd even walked through the door. I showered, letting the hot water wash away the tension of the morning, then dressed in the softest pajamas I'd ever touched and crawled into that enormous bed. I told myself I wouldn't be able to sleep, that I was too wired, too confused, too overwhelmed. I was asleep in minutes. When I woke, the light outside had shifted to late afternoon gold. I'd slept for hours, and my body felt heavy with the kind of exhaustion that comes from sustained stress finally releasing. I padded out of the bedroom in my borrowed pajamas and found Dominic in the kitchen, cooking. Actually cooking. You're awake, he said without turning around. Good timing. Dinner's almost ready. I sat at the island counter, watching him move around the kitchen with surprising competence. You cook? My grandmother insisted all her grandchildren learn. Said a man who couldn't feed himself was half a man. He plated pasta with what looked like homemade sauce, added fresh basil, and set it in front of me. Eat. The smell alone made my stomach growl. I hadn't eaten since yesterday, I realized. I took a bite and nearly moaned at the taste. Rich tomato sauce with garlic and herbs, perfectly cooked pasta, a hint of red wine in the background. This is incredible. Family recipe. He plated his own food and sat across from me. My grandmother would make it every Sunday. The whole family would gather, and she'd cook enough to feed an army. Sounds nice. It was. Something crossed his face, a shadow of old pain. She died 5 years ago. Cancer. By the time we knew, it was too late. I'm sorry. Me too. He twirled pasta on his fork. She was the last one who saw me as just Dominic, not Dominic Caruso, the boss, the heir, the man everyone fears. Just her grandson who liked extra basil in his sauce. The vulnerability in his voice made my chest ache. Is that why you've been watching me? Because I don't know enough to see you as anything but Dominic? Partly. His dark eyes met mine. You look at me like I'm a man, not a monster or a meal ticket. That's rare in my world. You are a man. I set down my fork. A man who happens to run a criminal empire, but still a man. Some would argue that doing what I do makes me less than human. What do you think? He was quiet for a long moment. I think I stopped caring about good and evil a long time ago. I care about loyalty, about family, about protecting what's mine. Everything else is just noise. And what's yours exactly? His smile was slow and dangerous. Right now? You. The possessiveness should have sent me running. Instead, it sent heat curling through my veins. I'm not a possession, Dominic. No, you're a choice. He leaned forward. My choice. And whether you want to admit it or not, I'm becoming yours too. I wanted to argue, to deny it. But sitting there in his kitchen, eating food he'd made with his own hands, wearing clothes he'd bought me, sleeping under his roof, I was already choosing him in a dozen small ways. What happens when the 2 months are up? I asked instead. Depends. Do you see yourself leaving? I don't know. Ask me in 2 months. Fair enough. He stood, collected our plates. Want to watch a movie? I have a screening room. Of course you do. But I followed him anyway, through the penthouse to a room with a massive screen and the kind of seating that belonged in a luxury theater. Do you ever feel like your life is excessive? Every day. He scrolled through options on the screen. But excessive is safer than vulnerable. The more resources I have, the more protected my people are. We settled on an old film noir. His choice, and I was surprised by how much I enjoyed his running commentary about the cinematography and the historical context. Dominic Caruso, I was learning, was far more complex than the dangerous reputation suggested. Halfway through the movie, my phone buzzed. I'd been ignoring it all day, but curiosity got the better of me. 17 missed calls from Marcus, dozens of texts from coworkers, and 3 messages from a number I didn't recognize. I opened the unknown messages and felt ice form in my veins. Nice catch, Caruso. Wonder how long he'll keep her. Pretty bartender playing with fire. Shame when she gets burned. Tell your boyfriend he can't protect everyone. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way. My hands shook as I showed Dominic the phone. His expression went cold and deadly. All traces of the man who'd cooked me dinner vanishing behind the mask of the boss. When did these come in? Throughout the day. My voice was steadier than I felt. Should I be worried? No, I should be. He pulled out his own phone, typed something rapidly. This is the Rossi family. They're testing boundaries, seeing if I'll react. And will you? I already am. He made a call, speaking in rapid Italian that I couldn't follow. When he hung up, his expression was grim. I'm having your number changed and your phone secured. And tomorrow, we're making a very public appearance together. Why public? Because the best way to protect you is to make it crystal clear that you're not just someone I'm sleeping with. You're someone I'm claiming publicly. Someone under my full protection. He stood, pulled me to my feet. I'm sorry, Luna. I hoped we'd have more time before they escalated. It's fine. I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. The messages had rattled me more than I wanted to admit. Dominic must have seen it in my face because he pulled me into his arms, holding me against his chest. You're safe here. I promise you, Luna. Nothing and no one will hurt you while you're under my roof. I let myself lean into him, breathing in his scent, coffee and cologne and something uniquely him. His heart beat steady against my ear, a rhythm that somehow calmed my racing pulse. I'm scared, I admitted. I know. His hand stroked down my back. But fear is just your body preparing to fight. And you're not fighting alone anymore. We stood like that for a long moment. wrapped in each other, the movie forgotten. And I realized that somewhere between the kiss that started this and the moment he held me like I was precious, like I mattered, somewhere in there, I'd stopped seeing him as dangerous. I'd started seeing him as mine. The realization should have terrified me. Instead, it felt inevitable, like every choice I'd made had been leading me here, to this man, to this moment, to this strange and complicated future we were building. Dominic? I don't want the guest room tonight. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his dark eyes searching mine. Are you sure? No, but I'm choosing it anyway. His smile was slow and devastating. Then come to bed, Luna. Let me show you what it means to be mine. And as he led me down the hallway to his bedroom, I didn't feel like I was giving up my freedom. I felt like I was finally claiming what I'd wanted since the first moment I'd seen him sitting in that corner booth, watching me with eyes that promised everything I'd been too afraid to ask for. Tonight, I was done being afraid. Tonight, I was choosing Dominic Caruso. And tomorrow, the rest of the world would know it. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the warm weight of Dominic's arm across my waist. For a moment, I let myself just exist in that space, the silk sheets against my skin, his steady breathing behind me, the peaceful quiet of early morning before the world demanded anything from us. Then reality crashed back. The threatening messages, the public appearance Dominic had mentioned, the fact that I'd spent the night in his bed, and while we hadn't crossed that final line, we'd crossed enough others that there was no going back. You're thinking too loud, Dominic murmured against my shoulder, his lips brushing my skin. I'm thinking at a normal volume. You're just paying too much attention. I always pay attention to you. His arm tightened, pulling me closer against his chest. It's become a habit I have no interest in breaking. I turned in his arms to face him. In the morning light, with his hair mussed and his jaw shadowed with stubble, he looked younger, less dangerous. Almost like a man I could have met under normal circumstances and fallen for without complications. Almost. What's the plan for today? I asked. Breakfast first. Then I need to handle some business. And tonight, his thumb traced my lower lip. We're going to the opening of Antonio Russo's new restaurant. Every family in the city will be there. That's the public appearance you mentioned. Yes, I want them to see us together. See that you're not just some woman I'm passing time with. His voice was firm. I want them to understand that touching you means going to war with me. That's very dramatic. That's reality. He sat up, the sheet pooling at his waist, revealing the muscular planes of his chest and the scattering of scars I'd traced with my fingers last night. Each one a story he'd eventually tell me. In my world, perception is everything. If they think you're temporary, you're vulnerable. If they know you're permanent, you're untouchable. But I'm not permanent. We have 2 months, remember? Something flickered in his eyes. A lot can change in 2 months, Luna. He left to shower, and I lay in his bed, our bed, my traitorous mind supplied, trying to reconcile the man who cooked me dinner and held me through the night with the man who spoke casually about going to war. They were the same person, I reminded myself. The complexity was what made him dangerous, and what made him fascinating. My phone rang, the new one Dominic had given me last night, with a number known only to him and a handful of trusted people. I answered to find a woman's brisk, professional voice. Miss Parker? This is Elena, Mr. Caruso's assistant. I'm sending a stylist to the penthouse at 3 to prepare you for tonight's event. Do you have any preferences regarding... Wait, what? A stylist. For the restaurant opening. Mr. Caruso wants you to look... She paused delicately. Appropriate for the occasion. Appropriate meaning expensive. Appropriate meaning like I belonged on his arm. That's not necessary. I can dress myself. Of course you can, Miss Parker. But Mr. Caruso was quite insistent. The stylist will bring several options for you to choose from. Hair and makeup will follow at 5. I wanted to argue, to assert some control over this rapidly escalating situation, but Elena's tone suggested this wasn't a negotiation. Fine, 3 o'clock. Wonderful. Oh, and Miss Parker, welcome to the family. She hung up before I could correct her. I wasn't family. I wasn't anything except a woman who'd made an impulsive choice and was now drowning in the consequences. Dominic emerged from the shower with a towel wrapped around his waist and found me glaring at my phone. Problem? Your assistant just told me a stylist is coming to make me appropriate for tonight. Elena is efficient. He moved to his closet, which was larger than my apartment's bedroom had been. I told her to handle it. You could have asked me first. Would you have said yes? He pulled out a suit, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, and began dressing with the unself-conscious ease of someone comfortable in his own skin. That's not the point. No. The point is that tonight you'll be scrutinized by people looking for any weakness, any sign that you don't belong. I'm not letting them find one. He buttoned his shirt with practiced efficiency. Let Elena help you, Luna. She's good at what she does. Which is making people into something they're not. Which is helping people feel confident in situations that would normally intimidate them. He crossed to me, cupped my face with hands that smelled of expensive soap. I'm not trying to change you. I'm trying to armor you. There's a difference. There was that word again. Difference. As if calling something by another name made it less controlling. But looking into his eyes, I saw genuine concern beneath the determination. He wasn't trying to control me for the sake of control. He was trying to protect me in the only way he knew how. Okay, I said finally. I'll let the stylist do her thing, but I reserve the right to veto anything that doesn't feel like me. Fair enough. He kissed my forehead. I need to go handle some things. Marco will be here if you need anything. Don't leave the penthouse without clearing it with security first. Yes, sir. The sarcasm was automatic. His eyes darkened. Keep talking to me like that and we won't make it to dinner tonight. Heat flooded my face as he left, his low chuckle following him out the door. The stylist arrived exactly at 3 with an assistant and enough garment bags to stock a boutique. Her name was Sophia, and she had the kind of effortless chic that made me feel frumpy in my borrowed cashmere. Mr. Caruso said you had excellent taste, but might need guidance for tonight's event, she said, laying out dresses across the bed. I brought options ranging from understated to statement. What's your comfort level? I studied the choices. Sleek sheaths in jewel tones, flowing gowns with dramatic backs, cocktail dresses that were sexy without being obvious. They were all beautiful, all expensive, all completely out of my usual realm. Somewhere in between? I ventured. Sophia smiled. Perfect. Try this one. The dress she handed me was midnight blue, almost black, with a fitted bodice and a skirt that flowed like water. When I put it on, I barely recognized myself. It hugged my curves without being tight, made my skin glow, made me look like someone who belonged in Dominic's world. That's the one, Sophia declared. Now for shoes and jewelry. By the time the hair and makeup team arrived at 5, I was already transformed. They added the finishing touches, my dark hair styled in loose waves, makeup that enhanced without overwhelming, subtle jewelry that Sophia assured me was just on loan, dear, from Mr. Caruso's collection. When I finally looked in the mirror, a stranger looked back. A woman who could stand beside Dominic Caruso and not seem out of place. A woman who looked like she belonged. You're beautiful, Miss Parker, Sophia said softly. But you were beautiful before, too. We just made sure everyone else will see it. After they left, I stood in front of the mirror trying to reconcile this version of myself with the bartender who'd kissed the wrong twin 3 days ago. 3 days. That's all it had been. My entire life had been upended in 72 hours. "Luna?" Dominic's voice came from the doorway. "Are you ready to—" He stopped, stared, and for the first time since I'd met him, Dominic Caruso looked genuinely stunned. "Is it too much?" I asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Sophia said this was appropriate, but if you think—" "You're stunning." He crossed to me slowly like I might disappear if he moved too fast. "Absolutely stunning. It's just a dress." "It's not the dress." His hand settled on my waist, careful not to wrinkle the fabric. "It's you. You're radiant, Luna. You're going to walk into that restaurant and every man there is going to want you, and every woman is going to want to be you. And you? What will you want?" His smile was predatory, to make it very clear that you're mine and no one else gets to even think about touching you. A knock at the door interrupted us. Marco appeared, his expression carefully neutral. "Car's ready, boss." The restaurant was in Soho, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of place that was trying too hard to look like it wasn't trying. A line of people waited outside, but we bypassed them entirely, led through a side entrance by a host who looked at Dominic with poorly concealed nervousness. "Mr. Caruso, Ms. Parker, right this way. Mr. Russo is expecting you." The main dining room was packed with people who all looked like they belonged in a fashion magazine. I recognized several faces from tabloids, actors, politicians, business moguls, and threading through them all was an undercurrent of danger I couldn't quite name, but definitely felt. Antonio Russo spotted us immediately and made his way over, his smile wide and genuine. "Dominic, and the lovely Luna. You look magnificent, my dear." "Thank you for inviting us," I managed. "Inviting?" Dominic's presence makes my opening legitimate. Antonio leaned in conspiratorially, though I suspect he's here less for the food and more to make a point. "Both can be true," Dominic said smoothly, his hand never leaving my waist. We circulated through the room, Dominic introducing me to people whose names I immediately forgot. But I noticed the pattern. Each introduction was deliberate, each one positioning me not as his date, but as his partner. "This is Luna Parker," he'd say. Never my girlfriend, or my companion, just my name with a weight that suggested I mattered. Then I saw Liam. He was leaning against the bar, charming a blonde who was hanging on his every word. But when he spotted us, his grin widened and he made his way over. "Brother," he greeted Dominic, then turned to me. "Luna, you look even better than you did the other night," which is saying something. "Liam," Dominic's voice held a warning. "Relax. I'm just appreciating what good taste you have." Liam's eyes sparkled with mischief, though I still maintain I'm the one who should have gotten the kiss. "Walk away, Liam. Or what? You'll cause a scene at Antonio's opening." Liam stepped closer to me. "Tell me, Luna, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd kissed the right twin the first time?" I said, "It's fine," I interrupted, placing a hand on Dominic's chest. I could feel his heart racing, feel the barely controlled violence in his tensed muscles. "To Liam," I said, "I don't wonder, because even if I'd known you were twins, I still would have chosen Dominic." Liam's eyebrows rose. "That's cold, beautiful. That's honest." I kept my voice level. "You're charming, Liam. But your brother is the one who made me feel seen. So no, I don't wonder what if. I know exactly what I chose." For a moment, something flickered in Liam's eyes. Respect, maybe, or surprise. Then his grin returned. "Well then, lucky bastard." He clapped Dominic on the shoulder. "Take care of her, Dom. She's got fire." After he walked away, Dominic pulled me closer. "Thank you." "For what?" "For choosing me." His voice was rough with emotion. Again. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversations and careful positioning. But I noticed the change. The way people looked at me with more respect after my exchange with Liam. The way women nodded to me with something like approval. The way men kept their distance unless Dominic was right beside me. I was being accepted, assimilated into this dangerous, glittering world. And the terrifying part was how easily I fit. The attack came on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after the restaurant opening. 3 weeks of living with Dominic, of falling asleep in his arms and waking to his kiss. 3 weeks of learning the rhythms of his world, of becoming someone I barely recognized, but maybe had always been underneath. I was leaving Velvet and Vice after my shift. Dominic had insisted I keep working, said taking away my independence would break something essential in me, when the car that pulled up wasn't Marco's familiar Blacktown car. This one was silver. And the man who stepped out wasn't anyone I recognized. "Miss Parker?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Caruso sent me. Marco's handling another situation." Every instinct I'd developed over 3 weeks screamed danger. Dominic never switched drivers without telling me first. Never sent someone I didn't know. I pulled out my phone, backing away. "I'll just confirm that with—" The man moved fast. Too fast. His hand closed around my wrist, and suddenly there was a cloth over my mouth, something chemical and sickly sweet invading my lungs. I tried to fight, tried to scream, but the world was already tilting, darkening, slipping away. The last thought I had before everything went black was, Dominic is going to destroy them for this. I woke in darkness, my head pounding and my mouth tasting like metal. My hands were zip-tied behind my back, my ankles bound to a chair. I was in some kind of warehouse. I could smell oil and rust, could hear the distant sound of traffic. "She's awake." A voice from the shadows, male, accented. "Good. He'll be here soon." "Who?" My voice came out rough. A man stepped into the dim light. Older, well-dressed, with cold eyes that assessed me like I was merchandise. "You don't know me, Miss Parker, but I know you. Everyone in the city knows about Dominic Caruso's beautiful bartender, the woman who made him weak. I'm not. You are." He circled me slowly. "A man like Dominic doesn't claim a woman publicly unless she matters. Doesn't rearrange his entire life to keep someone safe unless they're important. You're his weakness, Miss Parker. And in our world, weaknesses are meant to be exploited." Terror clawed at my throat, but I forced it down. Dominic had told me about these situations, what to do if I was ever taken. Stay calm. Buy time. Trust that he would come. "You're Rossi," I said, remembering the name from those threatening messages. "Vincent Rossi." "Very good." He smiled. "I sent your boyfriend a photo 30 minutes ago. Him, his brother, and half his organization are probably tearing the city apart looking for you right now." "Then you're a dead man." "Perhaps. But first, Dominic Caruso is going to learn that he can't have everything he wants, that some prices are too high to pay." Vincent leaned closer. "Tell me, was he worth it? Worth destroying your nice, simple life?" I met his eyes steadily. Every second. He backhanded me, not hard enough to injure, but enough to make his point. My head snapped to the side, ears ringing, but I didn't cry out. Wouldn't give him the satisfaction. "You've got fire," Vincent observed. "I can see why he likes you. Such a shame it has to end this way." "It's not ending." I tasted blood from a split lip. "You really think Dominic will let this go?" "I think Dominic will have to choose between his pride and your life, and that choice will break him either way." But Vincent Rossi had miscalculated. He'd assumed Dominic would come in loud and emotional, would make mistakes because I was involved. He'd assumed I was just a weakness. He hadn't considered I might be a strength. The explosion came without warning. Not a real explosion, but flashbangs that turned the warehouse into chaos. Light and sound and confusion. And suddenly Vincent's men were shouting, scrambling. And through it all I heard Dominic's voice, cold and commanding. Anyone who doesn't drop their weapon in the next 5 seconds dies. Gunfire erupted. I threw myself sideways, chair and all, getting behind a concrete pillar as bullets sparked off metal. My heart hammered, but my mind stayed clear. Dominic had taught me this too. In danger, you assess, you adapt, you survive. The zip ties were plastic, the chair was metal, and I was angrier than I'd ever been. I worked my wrists against the chair's edge, using the sharp corner to saw through the plastic. It took precious seconds, but finally the tie gave way. My hands free, I attacked the ones on my ankles, fingers fumbling but determined. Luna! Dominic's voice, closer now. Where are you? Here. I kicked free of the chair just as Vincent grabbed me from behind, his arm around my throat, a gun to my temple. Stop! He shouted. Everyone stops or she dies. The warehouse went silent, and then Dominic stepped into view. He looked like death incarnate. Blood spattered his white shirt, not his blood, I noted with grim satisfaction. His eyes were black with rage, and the gun in his hand was steady as stone. Let her go, Vincent. So you can kill me? I don't think so. Vincent's arm tightened. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to let me walk out of here, and when I'm safe, I'll tell you where to find her. You're not walking out of here alive. Dominic's voice was absolutely certain. The only question is whether she has to watch you die. I'm okay, I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. Do what you need to do. Vincent's mistake was looking at Dominic when he laughed. His arm loosened just slightly, and I'd spent 3 weeks learning from the best. I slammed my head back into his nose, felt the crunch and his grip loosen further. Dropped my weight, twisted out of his hold, and drove my elbow into his solar plexus. He stumbled back, gun swinging up, but Dominic was already moving. The shot was precise. Vincent went down screaming, clutching his shoulder, not dead, but permanently disarmed. Then Dominic was pulling me into his arms, checking me over with hands that shook slightly. Are you hurt? Luna? Are you hurt? I'm okay. I was shaking now, adrenaline crashing. He hit me once, but I'm okay. His eyes found the split on my lip, and something terrifying crossed his face. He turned to where Marco was securing Vincent. Keep him alive. I want him to live long enough to regret every second of this. Dominic. I grabbed his face, made him look at me. I'm okay. You got here. I'm okay. Some of the rage drained from his eyes, replaced by something that looked like fear. When I saw that photo of you tied to that chair, his voice broke. I've never been that scared in my life, Luna. Never. But I'm here. I'm safe. I pulled him down, kissed him despite the split lip, tasting blood and fear and relief. You taught me well. I knew you'd come. Always. His arms tightened around me. I will always come for you, Luna. Always. Later, after the police had been called and the carefully edited story had been told, gang violence, wrong place, wrong time, Dominic's security intervening, we sat in his penthouse watching the sun rise over Central Park. Vincent Rossi won't be a problem anymore, Dominic said quietly. Neither will anyone else who thinks you're a weakness to exploit. Because I'm not a weakness. No. He turned to face me. You're my strength. You proved that tonight. You stayed calm. You fought back. You trusted me to get there. That's not weakness, Luna. That's partnership. I thought about my grandmother's bracelet, still on my wrist even after everything. Para mi nieta valiente. For my brave granddaughter. She'd have been proud of me tonight. The 2 months are almost up, I said. I know. I'm not leaving. His smile was slow and devastating. I know that too. But we need new terms. I straddled his lap, facing him. I'm not your possession, Dominic. I'm not someone you protect because you own me. No, he agreed. You're someone I protect because I love you. Because you're mine by choice, not by force. Because you're the queen of this empire, not its prisoner. Queen? I raised an eyebrow. Queen, he confirmed. You stood beside me at that restaurant. You chose me over Liam publicly. You survived a kidnapping and fought your way out. If that's not queen material, I don't know what is. I kissed him, deep and claiming. Then let's make it official. Official how? I don't know. You're the one who runs a criminal empire. Figure it out. His laugh rumbled through both of us. I love you, Luna Parker. Your fire, your strength, your complete refusal to be anything but exactly who you are. I love you too. And I meant it. This dangerous, complicated, possessive man who'd claimed me but never tried to cage me. Even though you're absolutely insane. We're both insane. It's why we work. 6 months later, I stood in that same corner booth at Velvet and Vice where Dominic had watched me for 3 weeks. The booth was different now. Engraved discreetly on the table was DC plus LP. Because Dominic Caruso had bought the entire bar just to make sure that booth would always be ours. Marcus shook his head, mixing drinks behind the bar. You know you're a terrible influence, right? Since you two got together, I've had to comp half the drinks for every mobster in the city. Think of it as job security, I called back, grinning. Dominic slid into the booth beside me, his arm coming around my shoulders in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing. Ready? For what? Liam's bringing someone he wants us to meet. He says she's special. I laughed. God help her. God help us. If she's anything like you, we're all in trouble. I looked around the bar, my bar, in a way, since Dominic had made me a partner in every sense. Looked at the life we'd built from one impulsive kiss and a terrible case of mistaken identity. You know what's funny? I said. What? If I'd kissed you that first night instead of Liam, we might have just been a fling. But kissing the wrong twin made you jealous enough to claim me. Made everything happen faster, more intensely. So you're saying it worked out perfectly. I'm saying maybe I kissed exactly the right person. I turned to face him. Because it led me here. To you. To us. His kiss was soft, claiming, full of promise. To us, he agreed. My queen, my Luna, my everything. And as I kissed him back in that corner booth where our story had really begun, I knew I'd finally found what I'd been searching for all along. Not safety, not protection, not even love, though I had that too. I'd found my equal, my partner, the man who saw my fire and fanned the flames instead of trying to extinguish them, the man who made sure I'd never confuse him with anyone else ever again.